Hi guys, Orion here. Quick video to show you how to get my AA browser into your phone on your own without relying on my version, which is in the store, so you can be very sure that there isn't any malicious code running in the background, which there isn't, but at least then you're very sure. Okay, first thing to do is open up the Visual Studio installer, which is this program over here, and just make sure that once you go in there that the Universal Windows Platform development has been ticked on. Inside of the Windows Universal Platform, you need to make sure that the mobile emulator is turned on and you've got at least one SDK installed. Preferably one for the minimum version and for every version on top of that. I've also got the SDK for the last version in there for desktop. Although that one is for C#, but I've got a few more things installed here. You don't need the rest of them, as long as you're making sure that you've got these three as the bare minimum installed. The SDK for the last one is in there. Beware, if you don't have these installed, then you won't be able to install the app on any previous version of Windows 10. And of course we want to be capable of producing for all of the versions. I've got more installed here, also for .NET with Xamarin, etc. But for this application we don't need it. Now, the moment that you make any kind of changes here in the bottom, the install size will change. You can press then the modify button and it will start installing. Okay, so far Visual Studio Professional. Now the moment that it's been done, you can basically press launch. I've already got it on the back end installed. So at that moment, I've got Visual Studio Pro installed, but there shouldn't be any huge differences between your version and mine. So first thing to do is quickly start up a new project. Now do beware, if you're going to be copying over my code which is on the web page, then make very sure that you're using the exact naming conventions for the apps. Otherwise the things like the namespace, etc., will not be matching, and you will find that you get quite a bit of a problem trying to get the whole thing to work. So make sure that you name them exactly the same. Unless if you make new names here, then make sure that you don't copy the entire text but only partial contents over, and that you make basically changes to where it needs to happen. Now we want to create a blank app, a Universal Windows blank app. It's in the C# Windows Universal template, and we can basically start that one up, put it in a location somewhere, create a directory for the solution, and simply say okie dokie. Okay, here's the minimum in the target version. So as a minimum I've put up the November update, and as the target version it's the creators update, which is the last version. So let's press OK, and it will start creating up my AA browser. Okay, so I've got my AA browser turned up. Here's the solution. So we see the connected devices, properties, references, assets, temporary key, which you will get a store key the moment that you've got it published for the first time into the store. The app XAML, and the main page XAML. The app XAML you can basically ignore for now. It's basically for booting up the first page and getting everything else connected. It's the main page that we are interested in, and a couple of other pages which are connecting to it. If I open this one up, we get the XAML main page, and underneath it we get the XAML C# page in there. The designer will show up. Do be aware that the designer in Windows 2017 is still, let's say a little bit buggy. But let's hope it doesn't crash on us today. So let's go to the website to get all of the code over. There's a few things that might occur. So here's basically the main page XML. So we can simply copy that one. I'll use Ctrl A to copy it all, and I'll try to use the mouse as much as possible to make you guys see exactly what I am doing, but I'll basically try to tell you as well. So we can basically paste that code in there. Yeah, I'll hit Control S to save, so you can see which code has been changed, and then you'll basically you'll start seeing that the designer will start looking at the XAML and hopefully yeah, creating a nice document from it. Okay, well, I'll jump over to the C# page already. Back to my web page. Yeah, I do found that there's one slight error on my web page here, which has to do with how my web browser is interpreting this code, which is of course tricky to have HTML coding inside of an app. I'll correct for that one, so I'll simply copy all of this in there. Yeah, do be aware, I still got quite a few of controls in there which I don't need, but I've basically just used the original settings and added a few things that I needed. So I'll copy everything over. Now do be aware, if you renamed it differently, this namespace will be different and the whole thing won't work unless you change all of these into the name that you've set up properly, or you set up for the app. So I'll simply copy all the stuff in there. Yeah, we see that there are quite a few different errors in there which we need to get rid of. Well, this is the thing that is my error from my web page, so let me just correct for that one relatively quickly. It shouldn't be that difficult to get rid of, hopefully. And the HTML block. That is that, so I can save that one up. So there's a few things which are still missing. Yeah, a library built back, which doesn't exist. There's a public library. Library is a new library in here, which means that we're missing a class document. So if I'm going to hit into my solution and go into AA browser, I can basically do a right click and say add new item. Now normally it always goes to a blank page. What we want to have is a C# class that we're going to add in. Don't forget to name this one properly, so it needs to be named exactly the way that this one is named, library. So I'm gonna type that one in, library.cs. I'm gonna add that one in. So there's my CS for the library, which is completely empty. Yeah, still using the same namespace. I can go over to my web page again. Here's my library. Doesn't contain much, just basically some of the extra controls for the back button, the forward button, and basically the go parts, yeah, to try out new URLs, etc. So I'll simply copy all of this over into my Visual Studio one, and then basically paste it in, file, save. Now the moment that I've done that and I'm going back into my C# page, you can see now that library and library are now basically blue, which means they're not red underlined anymore. So let's see what else is still wrong. Yeah, status bar is still wrong. Well, that is a reference issue. I'll sort that out in a second. And the other thing is that we've got an input field 1 and an input field 2, which are basically wrong, which are the fields where we are inputting the HTTP addressing, and these are the filters that we need to go around to. I should have called this one the new filters. Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't say my code is perfect, not in the least. Okay, so let's create a new item in there. Yeah, we're gonna need a couple of new blank pages. Now the first one, of course, is the one that we have over here, input field. Make sure you're typing those correctly, or basically afterwards start changing these two around. Otherwise you're in trouble. Okay, so we're going to add that one into the other one. I'll quickly, immediately create the other one as well. Then we've got both of them out of the way. So input field 2, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm gonna say add Let's double check that for a second. Yeah, it's called input field number 2. Yeah, so let's start up with the input field XAML and the C# code. Back to my web page. There's my library. Here's the XAML for the input field. So back to that one. Select, paste, save. Yeah, that basically gives me now in my designer all of the proper parts. The C# code for that one. Back to my web page. That one can close. Here's the C# parts from it. I'll copy that one over as well. Let's close it properly this time. Back to Visual Studio and paste that code in there as well. Save it up. Yeah, you'll see that now everything is nicely. Input field now becomes nice and blue, which should mean that at this moment I don't have any big issues anymore. So input field number 2, let's do that one as well. The XAML part of it. Back to my web page. Oh wait, did I do the C# portion? Oh no, I forget. Just making sure. Ah yeah, I've done that one correctly. Okay. Back to my web page, and we take the XAML for this page. Copy that one over. Yeah, and just paste that one in and save. Ooh, I think the designer is crapping out on me. Like I said, there are still quite a few bugs with the designer in this one. Don't worry, it will just take a few seconds for it to realize that it has crashed itself. In the meantime, I'm going to copy over this one, and then I hope that by the time I'm getting back to it, it will have said that the designer has crashed and that we need to well, that we can basically simply still continue onwards with it. Come on. Yep, there it goes. Unhandled exception blah blah has occurred, even though it's now doing it. I can reload the designer, don't really care. At this moment, I'll simply continue with what I was doing. Paste. Yeah, do beware, sometimes it happens that it can't find parts of a namespace anymore, or it might be losing a few other things in there. Quickest thing to do then is basically just go to File, Save All. And then basically close off Microsoft Visual Studio completely, open it back up, and then you will find that it actually works again. So if we're now going back into the input field here and reload the designer, we'll probably find out that it will work again when, yeah, we've got that one working. 1, 2, 3. Are we stuck again? It's stuck again. Ah, that ain't nice. Oh well. There was one other thing which was kind of troubling, something that didn't work correctly. Why did I go into the designer again? We don't actually need it because I've got all the code in there properly. Yeah, there's one little thing here which is of some interest, because right now it will still not work. And that is here. It is var status bar is status bar get for current view. Now the status bar is the top bar in your phone. This bar over here. Yeah, I've got here one of the mobile test virtual machines loaded up, and basically what we want to do is we want to hide this one so that the app can run actually in full screen. So to get that one working, let's go back. Designer is still not working for me properly. Let's just close a couple of these things. Yeah, and if we're going back into the C# part of it, then we don't see any red underlining anymore. We can see input field 1 and 2 are now nicely in blue, the way that they're supposed to be. Yeah, everything else works except for that one thing that we were talking about, the status bar here. Yeah, status bar get for current view. That one is not set up correctly. That one ain't working. Okay, what's the problem there? Well, it's basically the references, because the references say that it's got the analyzers, the .NET Core for the Universal Windows platform, and it's got Universal Windows installed, but there is no reference to the Windows Mobile SDK. So we need to go to Universal Windows extensions. Well, here's the mobile extensions for Universal Windows. One should be sufficient. You could enable all three of them if you want to have them for all the three builds which are in there. And then basically we can say okie dokie. At the moment that those references get in, then 1, 2, 3. Look, here my status bar is now getting blue instead of red. And that's got mostly to do with this one here, with the Windows UI view management. Yeah, the status bar is a subcomponent from that. We also see that there are quite a few other things which are in here which are actually not needed. We can actually take those out if we would wish to. Yeah, because the directive is unnecessary. So we can actually take quite a few things out, but I'll just keep the standard parts in. Yeah, so that we don't, or you guys don't start running after this into any other problems. Okay, designer still giving me issues, so I'm closing the XAML page and we'll just go to save all. Yeah, so that one is then all done. Okay, now we can actually now already start debugging the thing. Now there's a couple of different debug capabilities. We can work on ARM. That will only work if you've got your actual phone connected. I'll do that in a second, although I don't have a camera here, so although you will see that it actually works, or I'll show you how that will function. It just won't show on the screen. Oh, there's my phone being connected up, and you heard the startup sound. That one will run under ARM for the device. Yeah. The one that we are going to try right now is the x86 local machine. So let's just start that one up and see if I've actually got the whole thing working, yes or no. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can see here in the bottom in the output generator that it's building the entire thing. Yeah, required formatting, application layout, yay. It is actually, oh, there we are, and there is my app. Yeah, we've got the app bar here, so home, back, forward, refresh, stop data. I can put in the proper website, so if I quickly go here, I could copy in the one that we actually need. Yeah, that's the nice thing of running on the local one. I can actually do copy and pasting into this one, say save. I've actually kept the filters in the way they are supposed to be for the ABN AMRO website. Yeah, but basically if you now type in your parts, everything will basically function without the menu, the headers, and any of the nasty footers on the bottom. Yeah, I usually like a nice slow one just on the side of the screen, which can be handy if you're doing any kind of work. Okay, so that one is working. If you're going to be deploying it as well on the phone, do beware. I now close the window itself. There will be, well, you'll see that in a second. If I go here into developing for the mobile emulator, I've actually got that one set up here already as well. But in here I can show you something that you would want to or need to do to get the whole thing done. I can actually already look at this one, although this is my previous test. So let's basically just uninstall that one. Yes, so we're going to build a completely new one in a second. If we quickly go to the settings and search for the developers settings, then one thing that you need to do on your phone is you need to turn on the developer mode. If you don't do that, it won't work. Yeah, you can't publish anything from Visual Studio without enabling the developer mode. The rest of it can basically be turned off, but that one needs to be turned on, otherwise a no-go. So let's go in there. Okay, so I can now debug it into this mobile emulator. You'll see it will start debugging, creating the packages, etc. I'll load that one up. Yeah, you can see that it's in there. I'm still active at the moment. It's now basically putting the framework in there. If this is going to be the first time that you're running the application on the thing, it will take quite a bit of time to load this one up. It's not the fastest loader, but once it's up, simply don't close it and everything will work. Yeah, so now we've got the site and the filter, so yeah, we can basically browse through the entire thing. And well, I can't paste my thing through there. Do I do that? I'm not the fastest typer in the world. Yeah, save. That should basically then load up the page. Oh, I made an error somewhere. Probably screwed up somewhere. Portal server. NL/. Ah. Let's try again. Yay, that looks more like the proper one. Alrighty, so now I've got it installed on this virtual machine. Yeah, deploying to your phone is basically the same. So let's stop the debugging here. Do be aware that after the debugging, you will still find that the AA browser is still installed in the virtual machine, as it will also be on your phone. If you want to remove it, you'll have to actually do it from within here. Visual Studio does not remove it automatically the moment that you stop debugging. Okay, the last thing that we can do is basically go look for ARM. Do be aware that for this to work, your device needs to be unlocked. So you need to basically go to your phone, unlock it with your code hello or whatever. And at that moment, yeah, you'll basically have a possibility for a remote machine and device. So we'll use the device here, and it will basically start deploying into your phone. And the moment that you've got that one set up, then the whole thing will work. The only thing that you don't get, but you saw that also in the thing here, is that of course the logos etc. have not been added. I'll let you guys play around with that yourself if you want to be doing that. So it's now copying 18 megabytes to the phone, and basically, well, you guys don't see that, but I do. Yeah, I've got the exact same thing as what we would see if we're doing this on my phone. Yeah, with the internet banking, well, not yet up because it says example domain, but yeah, with the app basically loaded up completely. So the moment that we've done that, we can basically stop the thing, and now you have the app on your phone. Do be aware that this one is with a temporary key, so that might mean that in about 3 to 6 months it might say hello, I don't work anymore. Yeah, which would mean that you'll have to go into Visual Studio again and then basically upload a new version of the same program. So that's it. I hope this would have helped you guys to get your own app onto your phone without having to rely on my honesty. Although I hope that you guys now understand that, well, if you take the original 18 megabytes and you grab the one from the Windows store, you will find that there isn't a lot of difference between the two except for icons. Yeah, and I haven't actually added anything else. I don't need anything else. I just wanted to have a very quick browser. Yeah, which would basically just take out that menu, which I don't like, put in my own logo. Otherwise, you'll have to rely on the logo from Internet Explorer or the web page itself, which might or might not work. Yeah, in this way, you've got full control yourself, which would be nice. And I've got some other pages as well that I sometimes like to have in there. I might build in some presets at some point that you might do multiple versions. Okay, that's it. Bye bye, and see you next time.